Hi, and welcome to If These Heels Could Talk.
I'm Michelle with BadCat Digital.
And I am JoyGenea with Solutions by JoyGenea. So, by the way, Michelle, what exactly do you do at BadCat Digital?
We do a lot of like SEO and SEM. We build websites. We do a lot of social media. Why?
I'm just curious because we rarely talk about where our businesses have evolved exactly and where we're kind of experts. So Solutions by JoyGenea is actually a neurodiversity coaching business. That's actually what I spend a large amount of my time. Some business coaching and a little bit of digital marketing coaching. Still / can't help and totally let go. To be honest, like I like dabbling in it a little.
It's such an area of opportunity for so many businesses, especially solopreneurs, new business owners, small businesses. It can feel really daunting and overwhelming to know what to do. So it's really important to have
and people
kind of coaching
hire me as a coach around that to help them save themselves.
Yeah.
They send me a lot of emails and they're like, does this look like a good deal? And I'm like, no, put it down. Walk away.
One of the ways that I think a lot of people need saving is that they will bring in an expert to help with anything, really. I mean, when you're talking about like what we do, that's kind of one aspect of it. But in general, I think as a business owner, you bring in an expert or you hire an expert to help with somebody. It could be a coach. It could be a consultant of some kind. It could be the guy who helps you get rid of the birds in your wall. But you hire an expert because they have a skill set and a knowledge base that you don't have.
And that's what we're talking about today. Today we are talking about experts.
Yes.
And how to do it right.
And how not how to waste your money with an expert.
Right. Because I will own this very clearly. I have done both. Mm-hmm. It was so much more enjoyable when I 100% or 95% trusted the expert.
Absolutely.
And it was so disrespectful, and I can honestly say a couple of the experts that I hired that I completely disrespected, they don't talk to me.
Yeah.
And for good reason, and I have apologized for that, but you can't
get, it's hard to get past it because this is somebody's profession, and we have a lot of pride in the work that we do and the expertise that we have, and so it doesn't really feel good to be blown off. But beyond that, beyond the human element of bringing somebody in and then just not listening to them,
right?
There is also a business cost, an opportunity cost there. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Let's start with why. Why would you bring in an expert?
Steve Jobs has a great quote. I'm going to go for it.
Okay.
It doesn't make sense to hire smart people and tell them what to do. We hire smart people so they can tell us what to do.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Steve Jobs people.
Well, and the other thing is, like, I built my team around the idea of shoring up strengths. Like, everybody has strengths and everybody has things that they're good at. And that means everybody also has things that they're not as good at or don't enjoy as much. So building a team around each other's, including my strengths and areas of opportunity, is one way of doing that. And that's what Steve Jobs is talking about. Why hire people who can do something as well as you can? Why wouldn't you hire people who can do something better than you can?
Right. And then why would you walk around and tell them what to do?
Right.
Because guess what? You aren't actually the expert in that area. Like
the one thing I would say is there does need to be some sort of strategy and oversight. And I think when we're talking about trusting an expert, we're not necessarily talking about free reign to do whatever. We're talking about trusting an expert with their area of expertise within the strategy that is set by the business. And so just adding that to what Steve Jobs said, because we do hire people to tell us, smart people, so they can tell us what to do.
I find people reach out for experts. I reach out for experts when I'm headed into something that I really don't understand. When we launched the podcast,
absolutely,
we read a few articles and we both went, oh God, this will take us forever to
figure out.
Yeah, the amount of time and energy it was going to take us to completely figure the whole process out, get all the right things into place. Instead, I reached out, found a couple of experts, interviewed them, and we hired one and said, we need you to launch us. Please help launch us.
Yeah.
And the suggestions she made and the things she encouraged us, we did them.
Yeah.
I didn't do additional research.
No, we just did the things.
Yeah, she's like, do this, let's set up this.
Because that was the whole point of hiring her. The whole point of hiring her was so she could tell us what to do, not so she could tell us what to do, and then we could say, is that the best way?
I just Googled that, and and I came up with 10 more articles, and what I'm really thinking we want to do with that is, by the way, I've had that conversation.
I have too. I had that conversation yesterday.
Yes, that's exactly how that goes. So it's hiring people when you want to move in a direction, and you're just not, getting started, and how to do that isn't going to be. Why would you spend so much time and energy training and teaching yourself something when there's an expert?
A giant red flag for me and a potential client is when the client said, well, if I had time, I could just do this, but I don't have time, so I need you. And that statement is instantly devaluing what we bring to the table as an agency, what I bring to the table as a partner. It instantly is intended to put me in my place.
Do you think they always mean it that way, or do you think it's partially their own ego having a hard time letting go?
Either way, it has the same impact. Yeah. Because you're right. Yeah. I don't know that somebody is intentionally being an ass. I do know, I hope I'm allowed to say that, but I do know that every single time I have ignored that red flag, it has gone badly.
What if I'm just playing through the whole scenario.
Yeah.
What if we actually called it out in the moment? I'm just realizing sometimes in those moments, I should maybe just say, you know what? I hear you say that, and here's been my experience in the past when people say that. So I'm just telling you right now, I might not be a right fit if that's the mindset you're going to come into this conversation with.
Yeah. I've skipped that because it's...
People don't typically
they don't like to be called to the carpet like that. Yeah, I'm not there to coach them or try to convince them that I have value. So I more say, that's awesome. Let me get you a couple of websites where you can find people who will be able to follow your strategy. We have a more holistic approach, and so I don't think we're a good fit. But thank you very much for calling, and here's and I send them a link to Upwork.com.
I like that.
Yeah.
And that's hiring experts also.
Yeah.
Just in a different capacity.
But if you really think that you could divine a strategy and execute it, and you simply haven't because you don't have the time, then I can't help you.
Yeah.
Because the whole way you're going to question what I'm doing.
They just need a doer. There's a different thing. When we're talking about hiring an expert, that's perfect. Yeah. Thank you. When we're talking about hiring an expert, it is about hiring somebody with more knowledge, with more expertise. Hence the word expert.
A thinker, not a doer. Yes. And sometimes people are both, and sometimes you hire both.
Yes.
But when you hire an expert or bring in a consultant or something like that, you're hiring a thinker. Yes. And so...
Why take the advice?
Because you paid them.
Okay, thanks.
Why wouldn't you take the thing you paid for?
Well, and I think
it's like walking into the store and saying, I would like this and this and this and this and this, paying for it, and then saying thank you very much and leaving.
Yeah. And leaving the bag
with everything
behind.
on the counter.
Yes. Because they have I looked at it this way. They have a track record of success. I'm not going to engage in a conversation with an expert that I haven't done a little bit of vetting. I don't trust. So they have a track record for success. They live, breathe, and eat the stuff I've asked them to help and assist me with. I think back to our podcast gal. She lived, breathed, and ate this. She'd been doing it for three or 4 years by the time we met her.
She had a system down. She knew what to do.
She's just boom, boom, boom.
Yeah. And if you already had a solution, it would have been executed. If you already had what you needed, there's something in it that you don't have. Otherwise, it would be done already. And
if the same outcome is happening / problem, you think you got it, and then the same outcome happens, you don't got it.
So
hire somebody outside of you to see the problem.
And The thing is, if they can see a problem that you can't see,
how priceless.
That is incredible value.
Yes.
But if you won't let them or listen to them,
yes,
then you don't have access to that value. You might have paid for it, but you're not able to access it.
You don't actually get
because your ego won't let you access it.
Dang ego.
Oh,
we wrap up, we might have to have a little conversation.
We need to name the ego.
Oh, I've got a couple of them.
We should name it Steve.
Mine's Alan.
Notice how they're both men's names.
Mine's a really dry, boring accountant who likes to degrade and tell me how I failed in a real kind of mellow voice.
See, mine's kind of like a 35-year-old former frat boy with one of those like backwards white hats.
Oh, yeah. And I remember them.
And a truck with those stupid mud flaps with the women on it.
Yeah. By the way, it's really healthy. Honestly, psychologists will tell you it's actually really healthy to have named and actually know that inner.
Well, that's good to know. That's good to know.
I'm reading so much psych these days. And
that's good to know.
That keeps checking off. And I'm like,
I was actually a little worried about this one.
No, we're good.
Yes.
Come on board the train. Like, that's the good thing. So waste. Yeah, what are you thinking?
Waste, like, if I can waste my money with an expert by not listening to them, what's another way to waste my money with an expert?
I was on a board once that hired an expert. I've seen this twice. I've experienced it twice. Once was on a board and once was in a business. Hired the expert, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Ugh. The expert came in, interviewed all of us on the board, interviewed all of us as employees, like 2 different agencies all together. Anyways, compiled this lovely report that was like, here are the problems we heard, like here's solutions, like here's how you can move this in all the right directions. We all heard that, right? They had a big meeting. Yep. We were like, yay. And then they took that report and stuck it
in a
circular
wherever.
File.
Yeah.
And it just disappeared. I don't remember ever feeling more disrespected than having spent the time talking to the expert giving them the information they needed, and not one item ever came out of those 2 reports.
That's really frustrating.
It was frustrating, and I left that board shortly after that, and I quit the job shortly after that.
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
Because it told me that we weren't growing. We weren't going to evolve. We weren't going to change. You just paid hundreds of thousands of dollars that could have been going towards the organization or something else, and you couldn't take that advice. So that's one way I can definitely see that one happen.
And it's almost like who decided to bring in the expert? Did the board, let's just pick the board.
Yes.
Because boards especially nonprofit boards, have really interesting power structures with the organizations that they're with. Technically, a board is kind of the last stop. So the executive director of a nonprofit answers to a board, and the board provides the executive director provides oversight for the finances and all of that. So I'd be really interested in this scenario to hear, was it the board who wanted the consultant or the executive director who wanted the consultant?
It was the board. It was the president of the board.
Okay.
In conjunction with the director. Like, it was they recognized that we were at a place with so many new people that we needed to know what direction.
Sure.
On the flip side, what's interesting is on another board I was on, they brought in an expert and they leaned in 100%.
Right.
And what an amazing experience that was to watch. I'm like, this is and basically the same type of scenario, the director and the board president were like, we need help.
But it sounds like in the second scenario, there was more buy-in.
Yes.
And maybe even more buy-in from the executive director, and maybe even buy-in from the leadership underneath the executive director.
Yes. And one thing that, looking back, as we're talking about in the moment I'm creating this, is the fact that I'm pretty sure the executive director of that organization at the time that got handed that report did not have the skills to actually execute the items in the report.
Sure.
And so instead of owning that,
they shoved it in a drawer.
They shoved it in a drawer and hid it away, and we just kept it,
plotting.
Stayed right where it was at. They didn't make more money. They didn't get involved in more things. It didn't go in the direction it needed to go in. So it was complete.
So really, it's a matter of that kind of buy-in and then execution ability. But the buy-in is so important.
Well, and it's not, what I've learned is, in particular, I've had clients that implement new system software type of thing. And I don't remember what expert told me this, but they're really, really right. And that is the fact that you have to have 1 or 2 people in that space that are champions of that of whatever it is you want to implement. They have to be champions of it because you're not there all the time.
Right.
And you might be an expert, but if you don't have buy-in from the people, boots on the ground, it ain't happening.
You know, what's really interesting
not the military.
Is that I talked to, our accountant project managers about this. Like, we are given, as an agency, we are given 1, maybe 2 points of contact at our client organizations. Mm-hmm. But we talk about, and I stress that it's very important to get to know and create some sort of meaningful relationship with people around that person.
Yes.
Their help, their assistants, their direct reports, and anybody they report to. You need to have a deeper footprint in an organization. Otherwise, what happens is everything that you give that organization sees through the lens of that single individual.
Yes. Oh, that's a perfect example. It's super narrow focus.
And if you lose that individual's championship, maybe they change jobs. Maybe they fall out of favor with the leadership because of something else. Mm-hmm. Maybe then you have lost a client.
Yeah. No, that
so that kind of looking at the surrounding, sending thank you notes to an entire team and not just the person, making sure that any subject matter experts are invited to the conversation if it's pertinent, like making sure that you're actively seeking connection with people around that point of contact is really important.
I think to add to that and grow on it a little bit is the fact that you're an expert in your particular thing, right?
Right.
Enrolling the other people in what they're an expert in, like you're talking about strengths. I was talking kind of gifts. Enrolling their gifts in that. And so a lot of times for me, I know when I come into new situations, I'm trying to field out, and I know you're doing this too in the marketing thing. You're trying to field out people's gifts. Who's going to be the champion for this? Who's going to actually get me additional good marketing data? Keep me in the loop about new things that are happening right here.
And who can take the information that we give and accurately somewhat represent it past us, because that's part of the challenge, right? Part of the challenge is, how do we as partners give our point of contact the tools that they need to be successful in what they're trying to achieve? Because when we're partnering well, we give them what they need to be able to, whether it's information reports or whatever, to be able to help us keep our jobs.
Here's an interesting point that occurs to me. Back to my board.
Yeah.
I had the gal that couldn't. We hired that expert. That expert also failed in a manner. They should have pointed out to the president of our board.
Yes.
They should have pulled them aside and said, we don't think your president can execute
We don't think the executive director can do this.
Yep. We don't think the executive director can do this.
Yeah.
And I don't know that conversation was ever had. That was definitely not brought to my attention, because that should have been part of it, because that was not it. Another thing that I've had happen, I don't know about you, is you start a project, it's going, and you're in the getting started and so forth, and the client learns so much that they realize that they've hired you and they want to go in a different direction.
Oh.
And I don't know about you, but doing this at this point now, as soon as I start to feel that, I try and call it out.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm feeling this.
Yep.
Let's talk about that. If you need to move in a direction, I will help if I can. Otherwise, let's figure out how to negotiate and
around this. Yeah.
Yes.
The earlier you call it, the better.
Oh my gosh. As soon as there's this
feeling.
And
you get into a meeting or whatever, and it's like pulling teeth to get an answer. Yes. The conversation doesn't flow. There's a feeling.
And they're on their phone. I remember this one. They're on their phone. Like, they're not there. And I'm thinking, we haven't even started to implement this. Like, if this is something's off.
So part of what we do in SEO has a flurry of activity at the beginning, and then a flurry of results right at the beginning. And then we start this kind of like slow, hard climb, and it can create, I call it the 4-month freak out.
Oh, okay.
Right around month 4, we had a flurry of activity in month 1, month 2. It calmed down in month 3. Mm-hmm. Month 4, they're like, okay, wait a minute. Is this really it?
Right.
And so I call it the 4-month freak out. And I pointed out, I don't necessarily use those words all the time.
Yeah.
Try to have a little bit more EQ around that. But I do point it out and say, do you remember back at the beginning when I told you about the 4-month freak out? That's what we're experiencing right now. Stick with this because it's really going to pay off.
Yes.
But what's going to happen is if you stop now, you're going to see the dividends in 3 months and you're going to regret stopping. And you're going to call me back and you're going to say, I want to restart again. And I'm going to say, that means we have to restart again.
Yes.
And you're going to be like, ugh. So stay the course, commit to a path,
make sure you have a clear understanding with the
yes,
how long it's truly going
scope
to take.
And clarity right from the beginning.
How long is it going to take to implement,
right.
and how long is it going to be before you see the results that they've kind of mapped out? That's helpful.
I understand being mistrustful. I absolutely do.
Yes.
The things I'm mistrustful of are big promises, fast deliveries, impossible timelines, guarantees, all of that kind of TV infomercial language has really no place in professional anything.
I agree. When it comes to hiring an expert, somebody who specializes in a particular something or other.
And software can't create a strategy for you. It's a tool that can help you, but it can't do the thinking for you. And so all of the promises about software that it's the end all be all are just not. Yeah. So thinking about that, and there's a lot of biases that we bring into these conversations.
Thank you. Let's call that out also.
Yeah,
we do.
There's a lot of stereotypes and biases that we bring into these conversations, and we're much more willing to trust or partner with somebody that fits within our stereotypes or biases, and we're much more likely to be a good partner to somebody who speaks a language that we understand well. And I don't necessarily mean English versus French, although that's a possibility.
That is a possibility.
But I also mean kind of a similar vernacular, a similar cadence and pace.
Yes.
It's why salespeople are so good at mirroring people's behavior, because you naturally want to reassure the other person when you're selling them something that you understand them and their needs. So mirroring that cadence is a really big thing in sales.
It's huge.
Yeah.
I hope we've been able to give you some good insight. I think experts and hiring experts has been one of the smartest things I've done with my business.
Yeah.
And I have definitely learned, I don't tell my accountant how to do my taxes.
No.
My accountant gives me a form
Lord.
and I fill it out. And I hand it to him. I don't go
frankly,
and tell my
don't
doctor
even really read it.
how to cure me.
Right.
When I go there, I might not always agree exactly with what they say, but I'm going to do a little, and I'll tell them this, I'm going to do a little more research. I need to wrap my head around this. This is really new information.
Yeah.
And I wind up emailing them a pile of questions. I love that little portal. And we get there.
Yeah.
And they hear me and they go, oh, because you react to this, you're right. We probably shouldn't put you on that. Let's have this. We have good conversations. But those are, in my mind, those are experts. I don't tell the guy how to plow the snow in my driveway.
No.
He plows snow. He's really good at it. He gets, everything gets shoved where it's supposed to go. We have experts and do trust them. And I would remind business owners, if you're struggling with that, if you're I want to hire these people, but are noticing it's a challenge, more than likely you might be a big part of that challenge.
Yeah.
And you're having a hard time letting go. And that's really kind of one of the big things I wanted to point out, because I think it's challenging to our ego. I know it's challenging. As a small business owner, one of the first hurdles was getting over my own ego and saying I couldn't do everything.
Right.
But I want this to grow. I'm growing this business. I want it to grow, but I can't do everything. And there's not enough time in the day for me to learn it all. Because sometimes it can all look shiny and you're but I know I can do it once I dive in there, and it's time out.
Yeah.
So
all of those things. I've just said
words?
6 times in a row, but all of those things. That's awesome.
Isn't it fun?
Couldn't have said it better.
So guess what? On that note, we're just going to wrap up and let you have an amazing day and go out and hire yourself a great expert and then trust them and get them enrolled
to do their job.
Yes, and listen and ask questions and be engaged and excited.
And
about
it doesn't
what
mean
you're
you don't hold them accountable.
Right.
It means that you start from a place of acknowledging their intention is to do their job.
Yes.
And when you start there, you're going to be in a much better place with your partnerships.
Perfect. Thanks for joining us at If These Heels Could Talk. We look forward to hearing from you / in comments and those kind of things. Keep an eye out for us interviewing a variety of people. And we're really excited this week. We are launching our newest thing, which is our award. And we'll be talking about that soon. And you'll hear our interview. So thank you so much. And we